Number 9. When you look at the problem, one of the first things I would recommend as you are looking at number 9 is that we want to write that problem and rearrange it. So we're going to do a rearranging of our numbers as we look at them. So when I look at number 9, I'm going to put all my X's together. So looking at your problems in your homework, those of you that didn't do it, that's okay. You're going to do this one with me, and you're going to have it down correctly, okay? I'm fine that you are writing this down and doing it with me. So we're going to put all of our variables. So we have x to the 3rd. What's the next x power that I'm looking at, Isaac?
-2.
I didn't hear your name being Isaac up there. So Isaac, what's the next x that you see after this x to the 3rd? Is that what you saw here? Isn't this the next x? But it has just an x. X to what power? First, you have to put that x down. That is an x to the 1st. If there's no exponent, it's understood to be, even though it's right next to the x and y, all of these are being multiplied together. And then, Cassidy, what's my last x?
X -2.
X -2. Now, what I might want to do for showing the work, because this quiz is going to be really hard, we're actually not taking it until next Tuesday, but someone said, oh, and today already on the quiz, people are getting mixed up on the rules. Is write down what are we doing then. Since the base is the same for our x's, we are going to add 3 plus 1 plus -2. Okay? Then I'm going to write my y's down. Okay? If I'm looking at the y's, as I begin that, Morgan, I'm going to have y to what power?
-1.
-1. The next y added that I see is y to the 1st, and then the last y, Janessa, that I see is y to the is it -2 for the last one? Or just 2? Just 2, okay? So I know that as I'm looking at that, I'm going to have, Dallas, you need to be writing this, we got y, we're going to put to the -1 plus 1 plus 2. Now I will have students say, you know, Mrs. Thompson, there's no way I'm going to write down all this work. And it's a 3 or 4 point question on the quiz when we take this. And here's the deal today on the homework quiz that we did. I had people get these mixed up. Like they thought they should not add these, the 3 plus the 1 plus the -2, which when you do add them gives us x to the 2nd. And this y to the -1 plus 1 is 0 plus 2 gives me y to the 2nd. And as you do a couple, you should be checking the answers. I agree, number 10 looks really super ugly. And in number 10, the first thing you want to do is notice that each of these parentheses has a number. So we're going to put our number coefficients first. So 3, 2, and 7. Today on the homework quiz, you're going to do the same thing. Write down your first 3 numbers. We're going to multiply them. -6 times 7 gives us a -42. Then we're going to put the powers of f. So, Cody, start me off. What's the first exponent with my f? F to the 2nd. Dallas, what's the next f that you see going from left to right?
F.
Just f, so we can put that as f to the 1st, if that helps us. Ramiro, what do we see as the next f? Are there any other ones? Or did we get them all? There's one more?
3.
F to the 3. Okay? Then I'm going to go with my g's, right? So Deshaun, give you the first g that you come to. G to the -3. Hunter, what's the next g?
G to the 1st.
G to the 1st. And the last one that I'm looking at, Grace Miller, is G -2. Okay? So I'm multiplying these and I get that -42. Riley, what did we say we do with our exponents here when we're multiplying? They have the same base. We're going to add them. So what would you get for the f's? 2 plus 1 plus 3 is going to give us 42f to the 6. Cassidy? To the 6, right? If we are going, let's see, g to what power?
G to the -4.
-4. All right. I can't have this answer, right? Why can't I have this answer, Ellen? The negative exponent. So tell me, how am I correcting it? Should I move -42? No. And so on the quiz today, I have people moving the negative 42, right? So she said we're going to keep the negative 42. We're moving the negative exponent, all right? So Elijah, negative 42 stayed. Tell me what I'm putting for the rest of my answer.
Negative 42 over G.
G to the 4. What happened to your F?
Nothing.
So it should still be with 42?
F6, yeah.
Okay, F6. So when I'm looking at my answers, and then I want to check these in the back. Because they're so ugly, and it's easy to make kind of some simple mistakes, you need to go to the back and check them, okay? I'll give out paper clips to you today so that you can mark that page, and after you do 1 or 2 problems, you have to turn back there and check it, because you do not want to do all of these wrong. 12 and 13 are the same type of question. If I'm simplifying 12, as we look at that one, Connor Peterson, in my denominator, I want to add those 2 exponents, right? If I'm adding them, what am I going to end up with?
We're going to end up with N to the
Let's do 13.
13.
So if I have 4 plus negative 9, that's going to be x to the what?
Okay, x to negative 5.
To the negative 5. And at this point, I know I can't leave my denominator like this, okay? I can't have a negative exponent. So today on the quiz, x to the 5th. I have to move it to the numerator. And 12 is very similar to that, okay? 15 to 17, if you're not sure about those, make sure you take a look at those. You'll see one like that next week on the quiz. This 4b, we are not, I'm not assigning that. It is going to end up being bonus points, that 4b. We will turn it in probably next week. You'll have up until the day of the quiz, but this whole thing will be bonus or extra credit. You have to kind of show your work for it. You have to have the right answers. It needs to be corrected. It needs to have the work file. So the 4b, if you already did it, you've already done the bonus. It's not due till next week. Yeah.
Do we have to do it in preparation all of those for it?
Yes. You do. Yes, you have to do all of them. Okay? So let's turn right now to your work, or to your notes. So take out your notes. You can leave your workbook just open to the page where we're going. So we're going to write it out in expanded form. That means because this is to the 2nd power, how many 4 to the 5th should I have? I should have 2 of them. So I'm going to have 4 to the 5th times 4 to the 5th. Now our rule today said that when the base is the same, what are we doing with our exponent? We should be adding it. So 5 plus 5 gives us 4 to the 10th. And the question is there something we could have done with this 5 and 2 instead of always writing it out, like 2 of them? Is there some shortcut we could think of? So as you take a look at it, is there a shortcut with 5 and 2 to get 10 rather than adding them? What do you think we could do with those 2? We could probably, does it make sense to multiply it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they are going to be doing. And this is our new rule as we are taking a look at this, is that if we have a power to a power, okay, so exponent rule, up here on the whiteboard I have, if we have a power to a power, we're going to multiply. Now this is a confusion where students did on the quiz today, because they went, oh, you mean when we multiply here, we should multiply these 2? No, when the base is the same and this is a multiplication, you add the exponents. When it's a power to a power, that's when you multiply. So there's a lot of rules to remember in this, and I agree, it gets a little difficult at times. So as we take a look, it says, okay, we want to simplify this one and also look for a pattern. So how many n to the 4th should we, if we are looking at using our pattern, what should we be doing? We're going to show n to the 4 times 7. Someone said, do I always have to show that work? I would recommend it. Nolan, you writing with me? Okay. So we got n to the 4th times 7. The main reason is that some people will make the mistake, instead of this being n to the 28, they'll get n to the 11. What did they do if you put n to the 11? They added. We're not adding these this time. When it's a power to a power, So by writing down the multiplication or putting 4 parentheses 7, most people don't make as many mistakes. Some of you are, 8th graders, and you don't want to show any other work than you have to, so you're trying to get done as quick as possible and not show anything and do it in your head, and then I have to mark it totally wrong. So if it's a 3 or 4 point question on the test, I can't give you any points. So in this one, if we are showing our work, we're going to put 4 to the 2 times 3. That's going to give us 4 to the 6th power. We're going to leave our answer as a power. If we are looking here, we have W to the 4 times 5. That's going to give us W to the 20. Not hard stuff, but they don't stay this simple, right? They get ugly, just like yesterday's question number 9 and 10 that you guys had questions on. So top of the next page, we're going to look at this one. We're going to start off, and as we look at this, as you're filling in your notes, we are going to put our m to the 2nd first. That stays the same. Then we are going to put n, and we have 3 times 2, right? We're going to multiply because those were power to a power. So I have m to the 2nd and n to the 6th. Am I done, or can I combine those together? Can I make it mn to the 8th? No. Different faces. It has to stay the same. Okay? But look at this next problem down the bottom too. Okay, so they're going to start getting a little uglier as you look at that. Just keep in mind what you were doing. So we start with x to the 2nd, right? Times, write it down as we're going. Some of you aren't writing x, and we're going to take 6 times negative 4. Now for myself, I like my work going down, or else I like to always keep going across. And I can't keep going across here because I have this other problem. So I'm going to write this as x to the 2nd times, if I am looking at that. What am I looking at, Jerica? X to the 2nd and x to the... What are we doing with the 6 and negative 4? Negative 24. Next step, as I'm doing this one, I am going to do what, Zach? Same base.
You combine the exponents.
Yes. How do you want to combine them?
It'd be negative 22 because
It's 2 plus what?
negative 24.
Yes. So we get x to the negative 22, and we're done. Right, Tim? Done? Yep, x to the negative 22.
No, we need to get rid of the negative.
Can't have negative, right? So what are you going to do, Tim?
You're gonna swap the numerator with one.
Swap the numerator. And someone said that there isn't a denominator. Remember, the denominator of any number is always 1. So 1 over, Tim, tell me the answer.
1 over x to the 22nd.
Nice. Okay, is that making sense how we're finishing that? So it's all these little details when you're doing the problem, okay? So Hunter, start us off on the first one. What are we going to do with the 2 and negative 2?
Oh,
I'm going to multiply them, okay? If I go to the next one, as I'm looking at it, Haley, I'm going to have t to the... Okay, careful. So we're back here. What am I going to do to get rid of that parenthesis like first? What am I doing with those 2 exponents?
You're gonna add the 2 and negative 3.
Okay, you weren't here yesterday. So let's go, you want to help us out? What are we going to do? Here. We're going to multiply those 2. We're going to multiply these 2 and get negative 5, right? So if I'm looking at this one, right? Grace Fortham, I'm going to end up with t to what power here when I multiply? So I'm going to take 2 times negative 2 and get negative, careful, we're going to multiply. So 2 times 2, negative 4, right? Ryland, if I multiply 2 times negative 5, I'm going to have t to the... Ted? So now I have to add them, right? So if I'm adding them, what am I going to be looking at for getting when I look at it? Kate.
T to the 14.
t to the negative 14. But again, this one we can't leave it that way. Nolan, what's our answer going to be? 1 over t to the 14, right? So kind of, I get that this is hard. And someone said, as I wrote down the notes yesterday in class, it just wasn't making sense. And my hint is go back and watch that video again and watch it again. And go to YouTube and put in some other videos. What's that?
How would you watch it?
On the daily planner. I attach it right after class. So like I attach the notes and the video, and I'll show you a little later in class, okay? So this one, we want to write this out in expanded form, and this one's a little different, okay? If you were going to write it out in expanded form, how many 4f to the second should I write down? I should write down 3 of them, right? Because this is a 3 out here. So as we look at that, let's write that down 3 times. You get this problem, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So we have 4f to the second, 4f to the second, 4f to the second. We're going to rearrange it, right? So if I'm rearranging it, I'm going to put my 4s next, right? Put all 3 4s. And then I put my f to the second, and f to the second, and my f to the second, right? So I actually have 4 to the third. Anyone remember from first unit, you memorized 4 to the third is 64. And if not, you're going to use your calculators, because you can use your calculators on this quiz and on this test. And then I have f to the second, right? And I had that to the third power. Right, I had 3 of those. Just like I had 4 to the third, I have 3 of these. So now I have f, and I'm going to multiply these 2 numbers, which gives me f to the 6. And this is that second rule that we are going to be looking at with products. And I'll tell you, this used to be an Algebra 1 standard. 5 years ago, we did not teach this in 8th grade math. It was only taught in algebra. But as our standards have changed, they've made it harder for you. I know. Or they just think you guys are so much smarter than 5 years ago. You can handle this. No. So what happens is if you have something outside, you have to raise everything inside that parenthesis to the power. That's what this rule says. If you raise a factor to a power, then you multiply. So you have to take it. There's 2 things inside there. Both of them have to be raised to that power. So we're going to do these last 3 examples on the top of the next page, and then we're going to take a short homework quiz. So, and the homework quiz is kind of from the C2 and C3 worksheets, C4 that you've done up to this point. So, to show your work, and again, my suggestion is when you're doing them on your worksheet, again, either do the work going down or across. We're going to start with 7 to the third. You have to take each thing to the third, and that means here, I'm going to take 9 times 3. 7 to the third. Anyone remember? Or I'll take out your calculators and put it in. 7 to the third is 343. Those of you that memorize. And we're going to have m to the 27, right? This one, ooh, anytime we have negative exponents, it gets tricky. Let's get rid of, and sometimes there's a couple different schools of thought. Sometimes people will do the distributing and put it to the power, and then they'll get rid of the negative and make it positive. Other people like to make it positive right away. And it kind of depends on the problem. So I'm going to show you both ways. If we do it, and we rewrite it with a positive exponent, right, we'd have 2g to the 4th. Then I would take the 2 to the 4th and the g to the 4th, right? Here's the other way of doing that problem. The second way of doing that problem, it's going to give us the same answer both ways. The second way of doing the problem is saying, oh, that'd be 2 to the negative 4 and g to the negative 4. Do you agree with what we just talked about? And then, am I still going to now rewrite this and get this answer next? Yes. And then my final solution to this problem is I'm going to write it as 1 over 16. Why 16? Well, 2 to the third was 8, times another 2 is 16, right? So remember, this means, and you're going to have your calculator. So if you get stuck on this and you're going, oh, 2 to the 4th, you get to put it in your calculator. 2 raised to the 4th power, okay? So both ways give us the same answer. I just want you to be aware of that. So we're going to look at this last one. It's a little ugly. Again, start each one and raise each one to the power. So we have 6 to the 3rd. We're going to have A to the 3rd and B to the 3rd. Keep me going. What would I want to write next? Anyone have an idea? Want to raise your hand and volunteer? Elijah? 5 to the what power? No.
It's
5 to the 2nd. Nice. This 2 is outside, and then I'm going to have A, and what am I doing this time? Here I didn't have to multiply because these were like 1. This is like 6 to the 1 times 3, A to the 1, B to the 1. So if I'm taking them times 3, I just get 3, right? Well, what do I have to do back here? I have to take negative 3 times 2, right? That's going to give me a negative 6. I'll have some people right above this put negative 6. It's like, that's negative 6. That's okay. This one you definitely want your calculator for, right? They're ugly numbers. We're going to put our numbers first. We have 6 to the 3rd and 5 to the 2nd. Put it in your calculator. That's a big number. Over 5,000. Put it in your calculator. 6 to the 3rd times 5 to the 2nd. Once you have that 6 to the 3rd, just leave it on your calculator and then hit times 5 to the 2nd. You don't have to clear that. Just put the whole thing. 6 to the 3rd times 5 to the 2nd, and Ellen, our large number we got was 5,400. Okay? But we had some A's. I had A to the 3rd and A to the negative 6. And a B to the 3. As I look at these A's, Cody, what do I need to do with those 2 exponents of A's? Since they're being multiplied.
Add them together.
And get what?
Negative 3, negative 3.
Which one? 3 or negative 9?
Negative 9, negative 9.
Or negative 9. You get 3, negative 3, or negative 9.
Negative 9.
Because, is it positive 3, right? Plus a negative 6. So signs are opposite. We're actually not going to add them to get 9, but subtract them. Your first gut instinct, which for many of you is almost always correct, that negative 3. That's a lot of times, sometimes you overthink things. You go, oh, should I do this? And sometimes that gut feeling the first time, don't always erase it. Some of you do that all the time. So you're right. A to the negative 3, B to the 3. But we can't leave this answer, right? Should the 5,400 move?
No.
No. Should the B move?
No.
I have had people on the quiz today moving both those 2 things. It's not this. This isn't the quiz, but they do that with one of the numbers. They like think everything has to move because they panic because it's a quiz. And I want you to think about this as we do this homework quiz. The homework quiz is just like take your time and think your way through it. So write all this down. All right.